Hello guys, what's up? I'm Foad, back with another video about programming. In today's video, I'm gonna be showing you guys what machine learning is and do some kind of a hello project with it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay guys, so before we get into the project, I'm gonna give you some rough idea about what machine learning actually is. So I'm gonna start it off with an example. So imagine that you want a computer to know how a table looks like, and I think that it's gonna be probably hard to explain the computer every single rule. For example, let's imagine that we have this table over here, and you want the computer to know this is a table. Now, if you want to explain it the traditional way, is really hard, and you may want to say, for example, if we have this special corner in these many pixels, and for example, if we have these columns of these special pixels represented as a leg of the table, if you have, for example, 4 of them, we'll have a table, and this is a table.
Stop the cap.
And now imagine that you have explained this to a computer by writing the code, and it's probably going to take like hundreds of lines of codes to explain this to a computer, but imagine you've done it. Now, what if we change the picture? What if we have this special table that, for example, is not in that kind of color? So you may tell the computer, all right, if we had this color or we had this color, then we have a table. Imagine that you have explained all the colors to the computer that a table can be in. For example, a table can be in white, black, brown, everything like that, and you have explained all of those to the computer. But imagine that our table is now a circular one. Now what you're going to do? Now imagine that our table, instead of having 4 legs, have 2 legs.
Well, that's probably impossible.
For example, let's say that it has 3 legs. Now what are you going to do? See, it's getting harder and harder if you want to explain everything to a computer. Now, here is where machine learning comes into play. Alright guys, so here is how a diagram of traditional programming looks like. We define some rules for our computer, and we give it an input, and it will act those rules on that input and give us an output. For example, imagine that you have successfully written all those rules about the table, and you give those rules into a computer, and you give it a picture of a table as an input, and as an output, the computer is gonna say whether it's a table or it's not.
Easy.
Now, how machine learning actually works is much more fascinating and more intelligent. See, we have our computer, and instead of giving the rules and an input, we give it the input and the output. And the computer is gonna figure out what the rule is going to be. So for example, we say this is a picture, and we tell the computer whether this thing is a table or it's not. And the computer is going to figure out how a table looks like for us. So we won't have to explain everything to a computer anymore. And that's pretty fascinating. Now, by giving more inputs to our computer, our machine learning model is going to be more precise and decide something is table or not, more accurate. So now that you have some rough idea about how machine learning works, let's jump right into our project and see how this project works. So as you can see, I'm using the TensorFlow library here, which is a really good library for machine learning stuff. And I really recommend to you to go ahead and learn this library. If you don't have it installed in your computer, you simply open up CMD and search pip install TensorFlow, if I have spelled it in the right way. Apparently not. It's TensorFlow. And as you can see, pip is something for Python, and you have to have Python installed. And the language that TensorFlow uses is Python. And I think it's really good since Python is really easy to pick it up and learn it, especially for beginners. Now, as you can see, I have installed TensorFlow previously, so that's that. The other library that is required for this project is the NumPy library, which is a library for Python, and it's basically a library for data structure. Now, in order to install this, as you have probably guessed, you open up CMD and search pip install NumPy, and it's going to be installed. And as you can see, my requirement is already satisfied, which means that I already have it in my laptop. The other library is going to be the time library, but the point is that it actually comes with Python, and you don't have to install it externally. So here are the libraries that we are using, and it's pretty simple. Now, the more advanced part is this part, which is the part that we are actually defining the machine learning model to our computer. As you can see, we are using TensorFlow and this special thing, which is called class, to explain our machine learning model to our computer. So as you can see, we are using the layers.dense function to determine how many layers and how many neurons we have for our machine learning model. What this means is that we have a single layer and a single neuron. So this is the neurons we have. And this is basically the most simplest model of machine learning, which has only one layer and one neuron. So you have probably seen these pictures, and this thing is a layer, and these small things are neurons. Now, what this thing is saying here is that we are only giving one input to our machine learning model, not multiple ones. So here we are compiling our machine learning model, and we are using the optimizer and the loss function to make our machine learning work. So before I explain how this thing works here, let me explain you what machine learning actually does. See, look at the data, the input data, and figure out the rules and try to estimate the answer for that special input and see whether it matches the answer that we have given it. So you remember the table example that I've said? So what our machine learning will do in that term is that it's going to try to estimate whether that special picture is a table or not. And it will check with the answer that we've given to see whether its estimate was true or not. So the loss function does that. It checks to see if the estimate is true or false. Now the optimizer will try to make that guess better and better every time that we teach our machine learning model. So I'll miss these two lines and explain it later to you. So let's go to this line, and what we're basically doing here is giving these inputs to our computer and saying that you go through this trial and error loop for 500 times. So it will loss and optimize its guesses 500 times. And at the end, we will ask a prediction from our machine learning model to see whether it works or not. So here are the inputs we are going to give it. So as I said, a machine learning model takes input from us and another input, which is the answer to the first input. So this one is what we are asking the machine learning model, and these are the answers for that special machine learning model. So in this project, we are giving our machine learning an array with a special pattern and answers for the first array that we've given it. So as you can see, for -1, we have an answer as -2. For 0, we have 1. For 1, we have 4. And as you have probably guessed, the pattern is x times 3 plus 1. So that's basically what our machine learning model is going to learn. See, for example, in this special input, we have 1. And if we want to multiply it by 3, it's going to be 3. And if we add 1, it's going to be 4. So for this input, we have this output. So that's basically it. So our machine learning model has to find that rule for us, which is 3x plus 1. So that's basically the job of our machine learning model. The point is that our model is not going to find that special formula. it's going to learn that on its own language. It's not going to be 3 times x plus 1. It's going to be something else in its own language.
What is this guy even talking about? How is that even possible? Like, yo, is he stupid?
So I think it's probably the time to run this project and see how it works. So as I run it, if you pay close attention, it says that it's using the TensorFlow library, and wait a second. As you can see, it's using the GPU to do all this stuff. Our machine learning is now training. I'm gonna stop it here to show it to you guys. See, you see this approach. This is the loop that I've told you, and here we have the loss. Now, as you can see, every time that we go through that special loop, our loss function gives a smaller number to us, which means that our machine learning model is getting more precise and precise. So as you can see, we've asked our model to tell us with an input 20 what the output is going to be, and as you can see, it says 61. If you calculate it by yourself, 20 times 3 is going to be 60, plus 1 is going to be 61. Now, if you pay close attention, it's not exactly 61. It's 61 point blah blah blah. And as I've told you, this is not a certain answer. It's an estimate for us. So as you can see, our machine learning have estimated that for an input 20, the output is going to be 61 point blah blah blah. Now, in order to show you what happens if we don't go through our loop multiple times, I'll lower this number 500 to 100, and if I run it, you see for now we had 61.03 as an output. Now watch what will happen when we run it. And you see our answer is not that precise anymore. It's 61.4. Our previous answer was 61.03 blah blah blah. But now it's not that precise. So you see, as we train our machine learning model more and more, it's going to be more precise. And if I add more inputs into it, it's going to be more precise as well. So if you give more data to the machine learning model, it will be more precise. If you run through those models multiple times, it's going to be more precise as well. Alright guys, that was it for today. I really hope you enjoyed and learned something new, especially about machine learning. Remember, machine learning is really important nowadays, and it's what most of the big companies are using. So I really hope you enjoyed, and if you've learned something new, consider subscribing to my channel and give this video a thumbs up so I know you've enjoyed it. So thanks for watching and have a nice day.